This is the Flourishing Business Podcast. This podcast is for women who are flourishing in business or who want to be. Today, my guest is Teresa Huff. Teresa is the host of the Grant Writing Simplified Podcast and a nonprofit grant strategist. She's helped nonprofits triple their funding and maximize their impact. After winning several $1 million in funding for schools and nonprofits, she now mentors and equips freelance writers and nonprofits to change the world. She's figured out how to imperfectly thrive in her introverted work-at-home life while juggling her 2 teenagers, a husband, and their crazy chihuahua, Joey. She uses her master's in education and over 20 years of experience in writing, education, and business to help others take their skills to the next level. To get started, take her free quiz, Do You Have What It Takes to Be a Grant Writer, at teresahuff.com/bizquiz. Before we get started, I want to welcome you to the Flourishing Business Podcast. I am your host, Allison Liddick, owner of Allison Liddick Coaching, where I work with Christian women running their businesses and trying to do it all in life. I am a wife of 19 years, mom of 3 beautiful girls, and I have an unhealthy love of coffee and Ray Dunn. Seriously. But for real, my passion and purpose is helping Christian women flourish in business and life, and to learn how to have supernatural focus on God's plan for their business. It's an honor to get to coach women from all over. I am also the host of another podcast called The Shared Cup, where women share their stories of how they've experienced Jesus Christ work in their lives. Check it out anywhere you listen to podcasts. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Teresa, thank you again so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have you share about your business, a little bit about yourself. So thanks for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Now, why don't you share a little bit about your business? Like, what do you do and who do you serve?
Sure. Well, I've gotten to where I'm a nonprofit grant strategist, and that comes from years of grant writing and education and small business experience. And so I've compiled all of those, and now I really enjoy the strategy side of that and helping, on the one hand, nonprofits figure out how to move forward with a grant strategy and funding. And on the other hand, also with grant writers and freelancers who want to get into grant writing, but they just really don't know how. They feel stuck. It sounds like something they would be interested in, but they don't know how to move forward. So I'm now mentoring them and teaching them how to do that for themselves, so then we can all create a bigger ripple effect together.
Oh, that's very cool. That's something I've heard so many times, is like that people have no idea how to even start getting a grant. So
yes,
reach out to Teresa if that's something that you need. So that's cool. I love that what you're doing, not only for nonprofits, but that you're helping writers expand their business footprint as well. That helps nonprofits too. So like you said, the ripple effect is huge. I love the strategy and just the model of that.
Right. Yeah. And with writing, I know it can be frustrating just trying to find another gig, or they are sometimes low paying and you're a good writer, but you don't know how to scale up your income or how your skill set translates to something else that you could do. So This is a great way to do that. It worked well for me. And I think other writers now could benefit from that. And I like helping them fast forward and being able to have more confidence in trying that.
I love that. That's good. Anything that you can do to expand your value that you're offering, right? And to have more consistency in your income and everything. Why not? That's so good. So let's talk a little bit about, like, how did you even get started in this business? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's been an interesting journey with a lot of ups and downs. I started out as a special ed teacher and did that for a few years. And then when we had kids, I wanted to stay home with them while they were young and just be available and be a stay-at-home mom. But I wanted to supplement our family's income as well and still somehow use my degree. And so then I got into grant writing. I started working with a mentor for a couple of years on her team and learned a lot during that time, just jumped right in and saw how the process worked and learned a lot about the writing of it. And then when we moved away, I branched out on my own as a consultant and started working with nonprofits and schools after that. So then just over time, got more and more experience, learned lots of things the hard way. I sat on a nonprofit board myself for a few years, and that was really valuable from a different perspective of starting the nonprofit and growing that over time.
Yeah.
So just all of those combined. And then there were a couple years that at the time didn't seem to make sense, but now it totally does, where I ended up working for a real estate investment company for a while, off and on. And so it was great for our family's income at the time, and also for learning some business skills and realizing some skills that I didn't know I had that were actual skills that to me were just normal. Like, you mean not everybody can just put these things together in a spreadsheet and strategize this or that?
Right.
People don't think that way. What?
Right.
So that was a really good piece of that now some of those things are kind of coming together. And I really enjoy the teaching aspect of what I've done and helping other people learn to do that. So it's kind of been a process. I can't just say one specific step. It's been a lot of unusual steps along the way that sound a little bit random, but when you put them all together, it makes more sense.
Right. I love how that happened for you. And I think that's a lot of our stories, right? If we really look back and we look at our skill set and the opportunity that we have in front of us, every little thing that we went through, we gained something, right? That allowed us to be in the position that we are. So everything that you just said is so good. And I love how God works in that way.
And sometimes at the time you get kind of stuck and you don't realize what you could do or how to move past that. I know I've been there several times and just, what do I do? There's all these things I could be good at or could do, but which one's the right thing to do? So sometimes just starting to take those little steps forward, it becomes more and more clear as you gain momentum.
That's good. And that's something too, I feel like can be, I wouldn't say more of a struggle, but maybe just a little bit of a different experience for Christian women, because we want to make sure that we are not only heading in the right direction for our business, but we want to make sure that we're heading in God's direction. So what is something that you've done that you found has worked well to just make sure that you're keeping God as part of your guide, guiding you in the right direction with all those little steps? Do you have any tips on that?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is just over time, especially the last couple of years, of really digging into the word for myself and not just following this Bible study guide or listening to someone else's sermon and just absorbing, but actual digging into it for myself. Kind of the difference in reading a book versus writing a book, the effort and the time and just the attention that you put into it. It's not passive. So for me, that's gotten to be a lot more active of really looking for prayers and patterns and qualities of God and consistencies, like over and over, where Jesus had compassion on someone over and over and over, or where it says, God will guide you. I will guide you with my eye. I will show you, go to the right or to the left. Just all those things that over and over starting to really sink in for myself, and not because I memorized them as a kid or I heard them on the radio in a sermon or something. So it's claiming those promises for myself and using those as part of my prayers, because what better teacher to pray do we have than the Bible and the Holy Spirit? So, just that's probably been the biggest game changer, is just really growing in faith and leaning into that, kind of soaking in the word, especially this year, because it's been such a strange year. And I've kind of been foggy for a while about what direction to do. And like you said, it's paralyzing. What's the right thing to do? I just don't know. And so some of those elements kind of coming together, lots of prayer and seeking wise counsel, and then just looking for that confirmation and making sure that it is the right thing, and then taking action on it. I realized I can't just sit and wait for answers. Waiting can also be active. So acting on that, and then little by little, the more I acted, the more things became clear.
That's good. That is true faith, where you are reading and digging in and you hear from God, but maybe you don't have that confirmation yet, but you're still moving in that right direction. That's where he can really show up and be like, yes, yes, you're on the right path, or here's this thing for you that is going to take you even further. So that's so good.
Right. And the hard lesson in that is sometimes it takes those trials and struggles to get to the point of being willing to just dig into that and say, okay, what have you got for me? I'll do it.
Right.
It's hard to get to that point, to that lesson. But once you do, it's kind of a process. You have to do it over and over. It's not a one and done thing of, all right, I'll obey you, God. It's a constant.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that. So one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is something that people bring up a lot, is, as a Christian business owner, how do you overcome obstacles that, jump in your way or whatever in your business? Have you had any obstacles come into your business that you felt God really helped you overcome?
Oh my, yes. Which ones do you want to hear about?
Right. Whichever one comes to your mind first.
Yeah, how much time do we have? Yes. Well, probably one big thing was it had a good and kind of difficult side as well. When we had just moved here about 6 years ago, one of my clients at the time called and said, hey, someone just quit. Would you want to come to work for us full time remotely? Which was ideal because I wanted to be at home still, even though my kids were in school. So it still gave me that flexibility. And I said, yeah, sure. And so I did that for about a year and a half. And it was the real estate investor that I mentioned. Okay. It gave me a lot of good accounting, management, projects, a lot of experience I wouldn't have otherwise had. But at the same time, it was very stressful and very busy. And I was working so hard to build someone else's business. Yeah. And at the time, their partnership ended up dissolving. They were having financial trouble and most of us got laid off. So then that was kind of a blow. And I felt like I was back to square one. Like, where do I even start now? So I kind of started getting some momentum again with grant writing and some consulting work and a couple of clients there that were consistent. And then a couple of years later, the real estate investor called back and said, hey, would you want to do a few hours a week? We're needing some help on our team. And I said, well, sure. I really liked the people I'd be working with, and I loved working with them in the past. So I said, okay. And then, so he called a couple of days later and said, we talked about it. We want you to work full time. And I thought, okay. And at the time, my husband was working on finishing his doctorate degree. So it was really good timing. It gave us a little bit of leeway and some financial stability during that time. Good. So he can do that. And then about a year and a half later, the partnership kind of dissolved. They were having financial trouble. Same story. No. But this time I had kept a couple of my favorite clients kind of on maintenance mode throughout that whole time, even though it was stressful and busy. And there were times I thought, oh, maybe I should just drop them. I need to quit. But I kept working with them. So then this time, at least I wasn't starting from scratch. There were days that I felt like it, that I felt discouraged of like, oh no, I'm starting all over again. But it's like, no, I'm not. I'm starting from these good clients. I have great testimonials from them. I've got a lot of good experience this time because I did a lot more management and developing company training and overseeing international team of people. So it was really good experience in that regard. I can't say it was wasted, even though at the time it felt frustrating and like, oh, why did I lost all that momentum with my own business. But after a while, it kind of just gave me more clarity where then I started creating grant writing courses and feeling more and more like, I have these skills. I could teach that to other people. Right. And I could go in a lot of different directions. And so that was kind of where it was discouraging at times and it was frustrating, but it also was, I could see where that was preparing me for the next piece. Sure. Each time that happened, even though it didn't seem related, it was really good experience because now I have both the nonprofit and the business side of that knowledge, plus the education background. Right. So it all kind of played together in a way I would never have imagined when I got my college degree in special ed.
Right. But you are teaching.
Right. Which I really still like.
Right. That's good. Wow. That's a process. And that's like, it's not just like a hump that was like a week. It was like a year,
Right.
multiple years. But I
Yes.
love too, though, that you were looking at it from the positive perspective. Like, no, I'm not starting from scratch. I have these clients. I've gained this experience. Like God had a plan for it. Right.
Right. And
And
there were days it wasn't always pie in the sky positive, but
right.
looking
Sure.
back, I can at least say that now. And I kept telling myself that even though I didn't always feel it and wanted to feel discouraged and feel sorry
Yeah.
for myself, but it's like, no, that's a lie. That's not what I need to hold on to. And I know there's something good ahead. God wouldn't have brought me through this and brought me this
Right.
far to just leave it there. And so I knew based on previous ways he had brought things and provided just when we needed it, that there would still be more.
Absolutely. Amen to that. And I love too, and that's really a way of taking every thought captive too, right? There will be days where we're in the pit and we let ourselves sit. As long as we can grab ourselves back out and be like, okay, Lord, I see you're working on something. I don't know what it is yet, but I know it's going to benefit me.
Right.
So that's so good.
And
So
sometimes
what would
we need other people to help pull us out of the pit too.
well, we so
And
do.
I tend to close off and just be at home and myself and my own little world. So I have to kind of make myself seek out people that can help. We can build each other up that way.
That's good. Glad you brought that up, especially with everything that we have going on with COVID and
Yeah.
people being isolated. What are some tips that you have for people to just have people around them that will help pick them up or hold them accountable? What have you done that's worked?
One thing I had to realize was that there were certain groups or people, especially on social media, that were not filling me in a good way. Like anytime I would see them in my feed, I would just feel anxious and negative. And it was like I would feel kind of different, not upbeat
Yeah.
about that. And so I started unfollowing them, and then I started seeking out other like Christian business groups and Christian women entrepreneurs. And I started praying for God to bring the right people or, encouragers that could speak truth or that I could go to with questions or struggles, and kind of a
Right.
business buddy type thing, which is hard to find. You don't just go look around town and say, hey, anybody want to business, meet up? It's just not something you find very
Right.
often. So looking for that and finding the right tribe, I guess, or the right groups that would do that. And it took time and it took some trial and error, like of realizing, oh, wait a minute, this group is really kind of dragging me down. So I would just unfollow. I didn't necessarily leave the group if there's value there. So I can still go back and kind of recap and read the high points or search for something, but listening to the podcasts that really do fill me and are encouraging, or social groups or people or whatever, that's kind of helped, because I mean, we're stuck at home with limited number of people and in-person interaction. So finding those people online has helped.
That's good. There are some really great Christian business women communities on Facebook. So that's a great suggestion to seek those out and just find your tribe.
Right. If somebody's struggling with that, I would just encourage you. They are out there. So find the one, keep looking, don't get discouraged. Find the ones that you really click with and that resonate with you and are encouraging.
That's good. Yeah, there's so many groups out there. It's like, I'm glad you were praying about it though. Like, God, give me the right group of people. Because it's like you said, it is there.
Yeah, to realize which ones aren't either.
Yes.
Maybe just aren't right for that season. They could be fine. They're good groups, but maybe it's just not what I need to be listening to right now, just because there's so much noise, not because they're bad, but there's just so much right now.
That's a good point. And I'm glad what you said too. You can mute the group, like unfollow, but still be a part of it. But that way it's not showing in your feed. Anything that's adding negativity in your feed just doesn't belong there. Because especially when you're isolated and you're trying to do something big that God has for you, you don't need that in your life. So that's great advice on that. Well, thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. I know it wasn't all of the wisdom, but the wisdom and insight that you shared today. What would be something else that you'd want to leave any business women with today before we end this episode?
I would just encourage you to keep seeking the Lord, first of all, and just keep looking for those resources. And if you're feeling stuck, just keep moving forward with something, and it'll become clearer faster if you're moving forward, as opposed to just sitting there waiting. So So just start doing something, and you can always adjust. It doesn't mean it's forever just because you try offering a service or try adding a new aspect of your business. Just try it, move forward, and then adjust as you go. That's easier than waiting and trying to start from scratch. Maybe God's waiting for you to take the next step. So
that's good. That is good.
Take it. I've been reading, there's a verse, Ezra 10:4, I believe, where it says, "Arise, for this matter is your responsibility. We are with you. Go, be of good courage and do it." So that's kind of been speaking to me of, okay, some of these things are scary. We've got some big steps here, but scary and being afraid is not a reason to not do something. I know that's a double.
No, that's good. And I think that's something that a lot of people think, that if it's scary, then it can't be something that God has for you, but that's not true. There's a difference between it being scary and you having God's peace that it's the right thing versus you should not do this. So that's so good. Great advice. Thank you again for sharing that. Now, for anyone that maybe wants to talk to you, maybe they run a nonprofit and they need to talk to you about grant writing, or if it's a writer that wants to get in touch with you to learn about how they can do grant writing, how would they get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, teresahuff.com, and my name's spelled TeresaHuff.
Perfect.
I get all kinds of spellings, but yeah, for writers, you can take a quiz there to see, do you have what it takes to be a grant writer? And for nonprofits, you can send me a message or leave a voicemail on there and kind of let me know where you're at, what you're struggling with. And then I'd be happy to talk with you to help you move forward.
That's so good. I'm so happy for you. And I love how God has just pieced all of us together and really expanded your footprint so that you can have that ripple effect.
It's still coming. And I've just launched a podcast called Grant Writing Simplified. So if anyone's interested in learning about grants, whether a nonprofit or a writer, feel free to check that out. It should be live on all the players now. So
okay, cool. So anywhere we can find podcasts, yours is there.
Should be, if I did everything correctly. So far, all the tests are coming back
I
good.
Bet you did. Say the name of your podcast one more time.
Oh, Grant Writing Simplified.
Perfect.
So it's an example of learning as I go.
That's right. So you took the steps. You didn't know how to do it necessarily.
I was terrified to do it, but
you did it. Good job. That's awesome.
I can do it. You guys can do it too.
Awesome. Good job. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of the hope and encouragement and the tips that you shared today. And we really appreciate you being on.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been great to talk to you.
You too. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to give us 5 stars and leave a review to help more women find this podcast. If you are a Christian woman, business owner, entrepreneur, and would like some extra motivation and encouragement, head on over to Facebook and request access to my free Facebook group. It's called Flourishing Business Without Overwhelm. Just put that in the search. You should be able to find it. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.